It's no secret, I'm a big fan of using Slack. I use Slack for all kinds of alert messages or to prompt me to do certain actions. It's pretty amazing. Up until now, all of our videos have been about sending data to Slack and not vice versa. There's a lot more you can do besides posting GIFs with /Giphy. You can actually do some pretty neat and useful things. So I'm just going to teach you quickly how to set up a slash command within your Slack workspace or distribute it as an app. So let's get started. The first thing is that you need to head over to api.slack.com and create an app if you already have not. In this case, I've created an app called DevRel for our own use on Pipedream. You can see here on the left-hand side, there is a slash commands area. And this is where we'll create a brand new command. Now, the command we're going to create in this episode is actually going to search our docs API, which is powered by Algolia. It's just a quicker way of searching our docs without having to constantly open up a web page and then search. Just do one Slack command. So I'll create a new command. I'm going to call it /docs_search. And the request URL is going to go to our Pipedream workflow. So we need to create a brand new workflow on Pipedream. And I'm going to call it Slack docs search /command until I find something more creative to call it. And then we'll use an HTTP webhook because that's the interface between Slack and an app. And then I will click Save and Continue. I'm going to copy this URL. I'm going to go back to Slack and paste it in. And the short description is search the Pipedream documentation, just docs. The usage hint will be just like a query, I guess. It's just one string. And then once you're happy with the format of your command, you just click Save. Cool. After you create your slash command, don't forget to actually install the app on your workspace. So head on over to the left-hand side, you'll see an install app link, and then we'll just install it to our workspace and allow it. Awesome. So now this bot is installed on our Pipedream user's workspace. I'm actually going to show you in just my own private messaging to myself. I'll just do a /docs search and voila, it showed up. And we could see there's a query. We'll just type in node.js because we use node.js quite a bit. And you could see that the default webhook response that Pipedream sends is right here. So we know that the Pipedream webhook was triggered, and we can even triple check it by going back to our workflow, and we could see a new event appeared. Perfect. So we have to just open this up and inspect the contents. Slack /commands start off by sending an HTTP request, and then they provide a bunch of data for us to look at. So here we could see the slash command that was triggered. We could see the argument, which is the node.js. And we can also see this special thing called the response URL and a trigger ID. I'll show you how to use these in just a minute. But the first thing we need to do is actually perform the search based on the text passed to our command. So I'm going to add a new step and search for Algolia, which is our search provider in the documentation site. And I'm just going to click this Use Any API Node.js, which creates a scaffolding that makes it really easy for us to get started. Now, the first thing we need to do is actually just test this. I can see the scaffolding is a bit outdated. I'll fix that after this video. I'm going to click Test, and you can see it's already connected to my PD Docs Algolia account. To connect your own Algolia account, you just need to open up the prompt and input your API key. And here we can see here's the index, Pipedream index. Great, we got a running start connecting with Algolia. We just need to modify our Node.js code a little bit. So instead of listing indices, it actually performs a query on the search index. So head on over to the Algolia search documentation. We can see this is the Algolia search API client for JavaScript. And conveniently in the getting started area, you can see an example of how to use the search method. So we just need to initialize the index using this client.initIndex function, and that will specify that we're using the Pipedream index. So the index name is just Pipedream. If we go back to the documentation again, we could see that there's a special search that returns an object that contains a property called hits, which are your results, your search results, aka hits. So we need to do .search first we'll extract the hits property, and then we will do a await index.search, and we need to pass in our argument from the slash command, right? So we could do that by going into our results once more, clicking this more button and finding the text. So we'll use the copy path link to copy the path to this step export, and we will update our trigger, we'll update our action here to include this text argument. Now, if we run test, hopefully we'll see all the pages that have a relevant Node.js query, and there's quite a few. Working with the file system in Node.js, you can see that there's a URL here. We can copy the path and open this, and that is a relevant link. Look at that. File system in Node.js, pretty easy. So there's a lot of data here. We don't care about most of it. We need to actually trim this data down so that way we can see it easily within the response to Slack. So I'm just make a quick Node.js. I'm going to make a quick Node.js step here, and all it's going to do is take that data and it's going to filter it down and maybe trim it to the top 3 results. Let's start with that. So I'm going to return I'm going to use a map statement. I'm going to copy the path from the hits on the prior step. This is our list of results. Paste that. I'm going to map each hit, and I'm going to return just the data that we care about, which is going to be the URL, really. I should just map hit and just return only. We only care about the URL. So within a hit, there is a object, and within that object, there's a property called a URL. So hopefully, this is just as easy as saying hit.url. And all a map is doing is iterating over each one of these objects, and then whatever we return will be transformed into that. So we'll just say filter results. And after we map it, we want to make sure that we only keep the first 3. So I'm going to use a slice and say 0 to 2, which is computer speak for take the first 3 results from the array. Sorry, 0 to 3, not 0 to 2. Cool. So now we have 3 URLs that are relevant to the query that we have in the slash command. The last thing, we have to send this data back to Slack. And Slack in the initial message gave us a URL. If we open up the query, we can see this response URL. So we need to copy this and make sure that we send an API request back to Slack. And we can actually use a send any API request. It might be a little bit even easier to do this. Do a post request, and that will be to our URL. And it will include one particular attribute, which is the text. This is the this is the content of the actual message that will be shown in Slack. And we'll look up our steps, and the filter results, we'll select this path. And instead of doing only the first result, I'm just going to join them with a comma, just to start, a comma and a space. It's not going to look super pretty, but this will be helpful for us to understand what this all looks like. The last thing that we should probably do is change the initial HTTP response. That's when Slack sends the initial message, return 200 OK, but with no content. With no content, we'll tell Slack, okay, we're not going to send a message immediately. We've received it. We're not going to send it or reply back immediately, but we are going to use the return URL in this initial message to send a response. And then we have up to 3 minutes to do that with the Slack API, which gives us plenty of time to do this search and reply. For our final test, we'll actually deploy this workflow so that it becomes live and it's not waiting for test events. It'll just run automatically. And then I'll return to my search here, and I'll do a /doc search and search for Python. And voila, we have Python documentation search results without having to go to pipedream.com/docs and then find the search bar and then search for it. You just do a /search. So I hope you found this useful. You can do all kinds of other things like adding modals. You can add drop downs or fields. And you can even use the Slack blocks kit with the response and format the message really nicely. But I just want to show you how quickly you can get started making slash commands to make portable, easy to use, quick shortcuts to actually perform actions against any API or database across thousands of connections that we offer here at PipeDream. Have a great day.